Welcome to the Byte Pod. My name is Anne Riitho, and I am joined by Bruce Foucart and Tim Gildea. Thank you both for being here.
Welcome.
Today we have a special guest, Bruce, who is an expert in intellectual property rights enforcement and has decades of experience in the U.S. federal law enforcement. Bruce has held pivotal roles, including the director of the U.S. National Intellectual Property Rights Coordination Center, also known as the IPR Center, where he spearheaded initiatives to combat global intellectual property theft and counterfeiting. Currently, he serves as an anti-counterfeiting and IP protection consultant, working with various companies and coalitions to safeguard intellectual property rights. So, Bruce, it's great to be with you again, and thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Well, thank you, Anne, and thank you, Timmy. Thank you for hosting me.
Before we move on to our day's topic, I just want to take a brief moment to describe the Byte platform for any new listeners. Byte is a screening platform designed to streamline compliance and risk management by providing access to comprehensive data sets on high-risk entities, commodities, and trade compliance regulations. So using advanced AI-driven insights, Byte enhances decision-making for businesses across various industries, from manufacturing and importers and exporters to law firms and financial institutions. The platform offers seamless integration with popular data tools, ensuring efficient and accurate screening. So today's topic, based on Bruce's background, I'm sure people can take a guess, but today we'll be diving into intellectual property rights and some background there. So Bruce, if you want to kick us off by providing just a little bit of background to our listeners on anti-counterfeiting and IP protection, what do these terms mean, and why are they so critical in the context of global trade?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Anne. Thank you again. So what I'd like to do to answer your first question or your questions is to go into exactly what intellectual property is, what the rights are, what are the most familiar types of IP. For example, many of your listeners are going to know about patents, for example, copyrights. I want to touch upon that briefly. Why an individual or a company, a rights holder, should protect their IP. And what the theft of IP jeopardizes, what I like to call the big three, and that'll end this particular question. So what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is a work or invention that is the result of creativity, such as a manuscript or a design or a patent, to which one has the rights and for which one may apply for such patent, copyright, trademark, etc. It is an intangible asset. It's something that you as a person have created. It's yours. It is, and I'm going to go over these in a second. They belong to you for creating these. We start off with patents. That's generally someone's invention, a patent or a design. A patent gives you, as the inventor, the right to exclude others from making, using, offering for sale, or selling an invention or importing it into the United States. So if you come up with an idea, an invention, whether it be a little gizmo or whatever, you want to get a patent for that to ensure that no one can steal your invention, to steal your patent. Within the United States, that's done from the USPTO, which is located in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a process you could go through. They are the government authority or license conferring that right or title for a set period of time. And that right in the United States and depends on if we're dealing with other countries or potential territories of the United States, exclude others from making, using, or selling your invention. Another common form of IP are copyrights. So think artsy. Copyrights are the exclusive legal right given to the originator or an assignee to print, publish, perform, film, records like manuscripts, documentary, movies, music materials. Copyrights last for the life of the author. So if you're the musician, it lasts for the life of while you're living plus 70 years. However, what you want to do is register your copyright. So while you register trademarks and patents with the USPTO, you register your copyrights with the U.S. Copyright Office, which is located in the Library of Congress in downtown Washington, D.C. And for a very small fee, you can register your copyrights. And why you want to do that is to take enforcement action if someone tries to steal those down the road, just like if someone tries to counterfeit your patent, you're already, you're registered. This is solely yours. One of the, I guess, transgressions of stealing someone's copyright, which many of your listeners or our listeners will know, is online piracy. So online piracy is generally music or videos and such that is stolen off of the internet. It's not as widely done anymore because there's situations like Spotify, which for a small price you can buy your music and stuff like that. But during the early 2000s, mid 2000s, copyright piracy and online piracy was very widely known and widely used. It's illegal. Piracy is illegal because it's copyright infringement, which is the unauthorized distribution of copyrighted materials. It involves the illegal downloading of specific copyrighted content, which is stealing. You're stealing someone else's work if you are involved with online piracy. And that can be as simple as sharing passwords. People don't realize this, but people who obtain, content like Netflix and stuff like that illegally by sharing passwords is a form of online piracy. Now, it will never be prosecuted, but certainly there could be civil ramifications depending on the degree of how that happens. And then one thing or one term that a lot of people know about is trademarks. Trademarks are a symbol, word, or words which are legally registered or established by use as representing a company, a rights holder, for an individual, or a product. So think about the Nike swoosh. The Nike swoosh, I think there's 30 or 40 different trademarks involving that Nike swoosh. Michael Jordan, for example, Nike owns the trademark for Michael Jordan sneakers of him as he's going in for a dunk. McDonald's, Golden Arches, those Golden Arches certainly have trademarks. And so what we see and what we're going to start getting into is counterfeiters who steal people's trademarks by utilizing them to confuse the consumer into believing that their product, and oftentimes most of the time counterfeits are shoddy workmanship, products that don't rise to the level of authenticity or origination, and violate that shareholders or that rights holders' rights by illegally using that trademark. And so it's good to understand what counterfeit is defined as. So Black Law's Dictionary defines counterfeit as to forge, to copy, or imitate without authority or right, and with a view to deceive or defraud by passing the copy of things forged for which there is original or genuine, So it's very easy and very cheap for a counterfeiter to make something, again, that's not original, that comes to a situation where it may look like a legitimate sneaker, a legitimate Nike sneaker, and then steal that swoosh, that trademark, and sell them at cut prices, maybe 30, 40, 50% lower than what Nike would sell them for. And that's done all the time. Since working in the private sector, I had a client who made firearms devices like holsters or firearm loaders, speed loaders, not firearms themselves, but he was an individual who had a regular job during the day. He sold insurance. At night, he'd go into his garage and develop these products, and he was very good at that. He was actually selling these to governments. He was making some good money on contracts, international contracts. And a group of counterfeiters, and I'm going to call them criminals out of the Miami area, decided to buy his product online. They bought his product from Shopify, several products actually, sent them over to China to be reverse engineered, brought them back. They weren't anywhere near the quality of what he sold, and they began selling his product as, maybe they changed the name a little bit, but as his. They actually used his pictures, his stock photos online, again on Shopify, and they started taking away much of his market share. And that was something that we had trouble with, but we eventually shut them down. So that's generally what a counterfeiter will do. And a counterfeiter can be charged civilly, it can be charged, it can be fined, they can lose a lawsuit and lose money that way, or they can be charged criminally by the by law enforcement, by prosecutors, by the judiciary. So that's a very good way of describing IP. And so why should you protect your IP? So to protect your IP, you want to provide a legal framework to prevent others from exploiting your proprietary assets, maintaining your market exclusivity, your brand integrity, and protecting your competitive edge. So you as an inventor, you as a rights holder, you as a brand, you as a company have spent a lot of money on research and development to develop that next great product or that next great invention. It's your hard work. You've toiled for that. You've spent money. And then you have this counterfeiter or an infringer that comes along and copies it, like in the example I gave, in which they reverse engineered it over in China and sold it at a cut rate cost, taking market share away from my client, who wasn't making the money that he should because he was actually competing with this group of counterfeiters. It's estimated that counterfeiters can take away upwards of 10 to 15% of market share from the original rights holder. In addition to that, I mentioned earlier, brand integrity. So the devices that were being sold by this group, this criminal organization located in the Miami area, came nowhere near to the proper functioning, the work that my client, his products did, or what he sold them to do and what they actually did. And so people that were buying these, somehow thought they were buying them from my client, and it definitely hurt his brand's reputation. So that's a reason to protect your IP. You want to be able to take legal action, take criminal action if necessary, civil action down the road, and you have to do that by registering your IP in the manners that I mentioned up above, either getting a patent, ensuring your copyrights are registered, making sure you have a trademark or trademarks plural, and making sure that they're recorded. They're recorded around the world. It's not very difficult, but for a small fee, you can have your trademarks and copyrights recorded by US CBP in the United States. That way, if something comes into the United States that looks like your product but may be counterfeit, CBP can take action, just like Chinese customs can take action. Any customs authority around the world can seize that product based on the fact that you have gone and protected your IP by recording that in that particular country. And that happens all the time. So what does IP theft jeopardize? So it's what I like to call the big three. The big three includes A, health and safety to the consumer. So again, counterfeiters could care less about you as a consumer and what you're going to consume, what you're going to use. They want to make a quick buck. They could care less if they sell you a counterfeit pharmaceutical that doesn't work. And so health and safety to the consumer is very key. So we've seen many instances in which foodstuffs, for example, have made people sick or even have died. They were counterfeit. We've seen many instances where counterfeit airbags, counterfeit automobile products were actually sold in the United States, made over in China and sold here in the United States. Pharmaceuticals, people believing they're taking heart medication, for example, when they're taking a placebo, when they're taking sugar. So what effect could that have on that person's, on that person's illness? So health and safety to the consumer is something that we don't really think about when we think about knockoffs, people selling, the counterfeit sneakers or, the counterfeit shirts and jerseys or handbags. They don't go dig deeper into some of these devices and some of these goods and products that could actually hurt the health and safety of the consumer. So that's number one. Number two is the loss of revenues. Now, I told you that when you compete against counterfeiters, you lose market share, upwards of 10 to 15%. But also, you're going to lose out, your company is going to lose out on that market share, which may mean people lose their jobs. It may mean, not only that revenue loss, but it also means Governments don't receive taxes that they should receive. So the global economy suffers, and I'm going to go over some of those numbers. They're staggering because of counterfeiters. So there's a big financial impact to rights holders, to individuals, as well as to governments. And finally, criminality, other criminality. We have seen time and time again where counterfeiters invest their proceeds, their ill-gotten gains, into other criminal activity, such as gun running, such as narcotics trafficking. They're pretty good at smuggling contraband in sea-bound containers. So why not just stick a couple of kilos of cocaine that you've financed by selling counterfeit goods? So we absolutely see these criminal organizations are not limited to just selling counterfeit goods. They're criminal organizations involved with many, many other crimes: wildlife trafficking, all types of illicit trafficking, illicit trade. They're also involved with corruption of governments, corruptions of frontline people who are inspecting containers coming in, or inspecting pallets that come in. So that's, I know, a long answer, but that's some of the ways that IP theft jeopardizes not only the consumer, not only governments, but rights holders as well.
Hey, I had tell me if I got this right, Bruce, and thank you for that explanation. But within the overall category of IPR, there seem to be three distinct categories. One, the patents, which are the inventions, the better mousetrap. Two, the trademark, which are the logos for Nike, for the swoosh, right?
Yeah, symbols or words, correct.
Right. And then third would be the art of someone, be it a book, television show.
Copyrights. Yes.
Yeah, for the copyrights. So that essentially encompasses IPR. Is that a fair statement?
Well, there are some additional types of IP rights that are stolen. So, for example, trade secrets. I'll give you an example. Maybe company A makes the secret sauce that makes a hamburger taste great, and all of a sudden you have a disgruntled employee that sells the secret sauce to a competitor. That could be a violation of a trade secret.
We see those. I'm sorry, we see those in the economic espionage with the bureau.
Yeah. So on a much larger scale that you're looking at, when you see, items of national security, maybe firearms, maybe weapons, and technology, and those types of things. Those can absolutely affect the national security of countries. Absolutely.
I don't have your depth of knowledge in this area, but I do recall some years back reading about certain designated groups, terrorist groups, who use IPR violations to fund their operations. And it goes to your point that, there is a criminal aspect to it. It's not just the victimless crime. There are prohibited, sanctioned organizations that are very active, and they use this as a revenue source across the world.
I'll give you a great example of that is the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris in 2015. So that it's a terrorist group that actually financed their weapons that they smuggled in. I believe it was from Belgium into the Paris area, initially by selling counterfeit online sporting goods, as well as selling counterfeit sporting goods in open bazaars and open bodegas in the Paris area. And so we were able to trace that back to the funding of weaponry that they smuggled down into Paris and ended up killing, several individuals, including a couple of Parisian police officers. So that is a great example of where selling counterfeit goods went towards terrorist activity.
Got it.
Thank you so much, Bruce. That was great background. And I think, you really highlighted the impact that this is having and can have, and some of the challenges. I guess kind of moving forward, what would you say, have you seen key initiatives or collaborations that have advanced this combating of IP theft? Like you just gave a great example of challenges that we've seen. Have we seen anything working?
Yes, and the key word there, Anne, is collaboration, and the collaboration between government entities, between countries, between industry and government and law enforcement. I am a big proponent of IP coordination centers. I'm a proponent of this concept where within certain countries or certain areas, like over in the EU, where all the EU countries provide law enforcement to sit in one place in Europol in The Hague, where you can collaborate together, sit down in a task force setting in one room where you can share information, where you can work with industry. Some of these places have industry working hand in hand, with law enforcement, because law enforcement are protecting, industry's rights. Likewise, you have messaging out of these IP coordination centers, where public affairs people are sending the right message to educate the consumer. I'm a little biased, having worked and having been the director of the IPR Center, but I believe the U.S. IPR Center to be the cutting edge or the most significant IP coordination center that's out there. They do a great job. They have many, I think they have upwards of 30 different agencies that are partners. Many are international, including Interpol, including Europol, where they sit together, or they sit together in the DC area and they collaborate. Again, in the same office where they're going out to lunch together. And what better way to get work done and going out for a beer after when you're sitting and working together. So collaboration being the key. IP coordination centers around the world. I know in the Middle East, I think there's one. I think there's one in Saudi Arabia. So there are these coordination centers. They seem to work. Within the private sector, there's different anti-counterfeiting coalitions. I had the opportunity to work for INTA as a consultant when I first got out of the government, the International Trademark Association, in which there are a lot of in-house attorneys and outside attorneys, as well as right holders, come together and provide information. They push legislation. They share information. They work together with law enforcement. So private sector working with law enforcement is another great collaboration. I'll give you an example of the private sector coming together, which no one saw could happen. Is within the automobile industry. The group is called A2C2, and what it is, it's the major automobile manufacturers in the United States as well as around the world coming together to share information on counterfeiters that are selling counterfeit automobile parts. And just to have them sit in the same room was a major, I guess, coup when they first decided to do this back in the, I want to say 2014, 2013. But they've grown to a situation where they're regularly sharing information, regularly working together within the private sector to stop the flow of counterfeit goods in the automobile sector. There are others as well. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I know out of D.C., does a really great job as well. And then, just getting back to registering your trademarks and copyrights, around the world and within different countries, that's a collaboration to have with law enforcement. In addition to training, I'm a big proponent of training. I often have clients that we will get in front of CBP, both frontline inspectors, as well as like import specialists, to show them what the rights holders' products are, and to make, be on lookout in case these are smuggled into the United States. So training, absolutely. IP coordination centers and private sector coalitions.
Fantastic. And obviously, I'm coming from Byte, so I'm also interested in the technology side. Have you seen a role that tech is playing in this, either IP protection or enforcement? Are there any innovative tools or methodologies in the tech space that you're seeing or finding promising?
Yeah, and going into AI and machine learning is something I wanted to bring up. I'm not totally knowledgeable like people that are in this industry, but however, within the anti-counterfeiting world, what we have seen is that machine learning and AI is a double-edged sword. So you have counterfeiters using AI to create deep fakes, for examples of videos, maybe images of famous people that are selling counterfeit products for someone when then, they're definitely not real, impersonating brands, for example. So we've seen the negative part of that. However, we have seen companies using AI with the ability to reduce the manual workload of people and brand, protection people by recognizing, signs of scams that are out there, recognizing counterfeit goods online, key search words, etc., spelling mistakes, picking up on these things. Counterfeiters are notorious for misspelling, especially if they don't know the English language quite well. Negative reviews and the redirection of consumers to illicit domains. So AI, machine learning, again, double-edged sword. Counterfeiters take advantage of it, as well as law enforcement, as well as private industry now. Also, what we've seen is kind of, and it's been around for a while, but the ability of brands to track their products from manufacturer to manufacturer to their suppliers, to the consumers, to ensure that the supply chain keeps its integrity. To make sure. We've seen blockchain technology, for example. We've seen, RF codes that we're able to track, pharmaceuticals from manufacturer to, where they're going to be distributed, say Walmart or whatever. But I will preface that by saying it doesn't matter in this space. It doesn't matter how good that technology is, because you're still going to have some people that have that appetite to buy counterfeit goods and to buy it directly from the counterfeiter, whether that be, through the mail or, however that's going to take place, maybe in an outside marketplace. So it doesn't matter how good your technology is in making sure your product gets to where it's going to be distributed and it's authentic when you have someone that has an appetite for a consumer that has this appetite that's going to go out and buy counterfeit goods directly from the counterfeiter. So, and it's all about messaging. It's all about education. It's all about getting in front and getting the right message to the right people.
And how do you think that can happen? Like, how can we get the right message to the right people? Are there avenues that you've seen that are most effective?
So that's the $50,000 question is, making sure you get it to the right people. So what we've seen is one size does not fit all. So, for example, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce several years ago did a survey, and I might have been Gen Zs, it might have been Gen Xers at the time, and they questioned them, and would they buy counterfeits and under what circumstances, et cetera. And the results of that survey found that what affected that group most, that demographic most, was losing their PII, was having their information stolen by counterfeit line, like credit card information, for example, maybe social security numbers, phishing scams, those type of things. That resonated most with that age group. And that would be different than, someone like myself who, at night I'm going to go maybe watch Netflix or, maybe, watch sports and maybe see a PSA, public service announcement about counterfeits. And maybe that just isn't going to happen to that younger demographic. So what we find again is that no one size fits all. And the key part of this whole thing is to come up with a way to reach the right people. Does that mean bulletin boards? Does it mean public service announcements? Years ago, smoking was very common in the United States until, public service announcements and maybe some lawsuits changed all that in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And now people don't smoke as much. They realize that, it affects their health. So how do you harness that? How do you harness that information to change people's perceptions? And it might be, the advertisement of someone losing their job here. I know the IPR Center, we had, someone selling, this was, done, it was professionally done by, a Hollywood commercial company where someone was on the streets of New York selling a counterfeit DVD at the time. And they said, here, would you like to take, 5 counterfeit DVDs? They're for free. Don't worry about it. And they would, just random people, and they'd come up and say, sure, wow, I'd love to see these. And then they'd stop and then say, but, the company that made these DVDs are going to lay off 10 people. They're not going to have enough money to go forward and do the next part of what they intend to doing, because they're not making revenue by you stealing their IP, in this case, the counterfeit DVDs. And we felt that resonated with a certain group. So
Mhm.
it's different. It's difficult. Educating the public is definitely a challenge.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm just trying to think, even now, people are always looking up like dupes, right? So it's almost like we've rebranded a counterfeit item to make it something people want to look for.
Right.
But, then the flip side is then we have to go back to educating and kind of counter marketing almost for what that dupe really is and what that means and what it does to the economy.
One of the things that we decided to do, and I'm involved with the European IPO office, is to try to educate travelers that are going to high intensity good countries. And you might do that by taking out an ad in like an airline magazine, if they even use those anymore. I think they may in international travel, but maybe handing out flyers. Someone traveling to, say, Jakarta, Indonesia is a big market for the selling of counterfeit goods. If they read this information as they get onto a plane and start educating themselves, maybe you stop some of the flow that way. So there's a number of different ways to do it. It's just use your imagination, and whatever sticks, go with it.
Tim, it looked like you were coming on to ask a question. Did you have any follow-up there?
No, I was just going to say to Bruce, if any of our listeners wanted to talk to you or get more information on this topic, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, well, thanks. So they can call me. My phone number is 617-212-1633. Or they certainly can email me at Foucart, spelled Foucart, Foucart, and the word and associates at gmail.com. And I also have a website, www.foucartandassociates.com, where they can drop me a line there. But certainly am available to help them out, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Bruce. I mean, this has been really interesting for me. Great to hear from an expert like yourself. And like Tim said, I think, we will have people reaching out to you directly if they have questions on this. Any final thoughts from you, Bruce, that you didn't share with our listeners today that you wanted to make sure they heard?
I think, just overall becoming aware of what's real and what's not. Do your due diligence, especially when you're online, when you're in marketplaces. Some of the challenges that law enforcement and rights holders have are online marketplaces. It's unfortunate, but, some are better than others. Some will take, these nefarious counterfeiters and shut them down. And then they'll pop up several days later with a new alias selling, the same stuff. So it's almost like whack-a-mole. But as a consumer, you need to do your due diligence. Is there a reason, those Nike sneakers or that Nike t-shirt is 50% off of what it normally sells for, or, 80%, or whatever it is? Look deeper. Make sure there's a website that's associated that you can jump on to verify. If you really don't know, call the company, call the brick and mortar store, do whatever, and say, hey, I think I might be buying counterfeits. Start with the source. So, not only is it to educate yourself, but be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your marketplaces, and use your due diligence. Great
tips. I never thought of calling the actual source, so that's a good tip. That's a great way to prevent yourself from buying something counterfeit.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, any final thoughts from you?
No, I just want to thank Bruce. This is a great intro. Maybe when his schedule allows, we could go in more depth in some of the use cases. I know, in the past, I've heard of air traffic control software being interdicted by Homeland Security investigations. Within the Department of Defense, the supply chains too being infiltrated. So we're just, I think we're just kind of touching the surface here, and I'd be interested in some more violations and things that Bruce has encountered over the years, because I think he's a wealth of information. Is perhaps from the enforcement side, the most experienced person in this area. So thank you for your time, and let's do it again, Bruce.
No problem. And thank you both. And you guys have a great product. I know the U.S. government contracts with you, and the wealth of information that you guys provide to law enforcement officers goes towards, shutting these counterfeiters down. Like you said, Tim, you definitely don't want to have counterfeit technology or counterfeit products in the U.S. government within, the Department of Defense. And that's something that no one wants, no American wants, because it affects our national security. So keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing a great job. And until next time, we'll speak again.
Thanks, Bruce. And that wraps up another episode of the Byte Pod. Don't forget, you can check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you're interested in a demo of Byte, please feel free to reach out to us either on our website at bytedata.io, or you can email directly to info@bytedata.io. Don't forget to reach out to Bruce with any additional questions. And we do offer free trials of the app, and you can sign up for that on our website. So thank you again, Tim and Bruce, for your time, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.